Hey, I'm Mike O'Dowd with USCCA, and today I'm going to teach you how to sight in your rifle. We're going to walk you through the how-to of sight-ins. We're going to answer why you sight in and what the purpose you have to sight in for. We're also going to talk about the different details of like where to put your face, the body positions, and then lastly go over the ballistics and what you should know about what your bullet is doing and why it's doing it. First thing I want to address is the purpose of your sight-in, right? A lot of people just blindly sight in because somebody tells them, oh, you should sight your rifle in at 25, at 50, at 100. But nobody really explains the why. Like, what is the purpose of why you would sight in? Well, if it's for home defense, is it close range? Are you planning on only shooting a threat that's, maybe 5-10 yards away? Are you planning on shooting something out to 500 yards? Are you planning on going down range in combat and fighting enemy between 100 and 500? Is it beyond that? So that's the first thing you have to answer is what's the purpose of your sight-in and what is the biggest threat to you? For me, when I was overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan, I always sighted in for the purpose of engaging enemy with the lowest variance at the combat distances that we were seeing targets. So about 50 yards out to 300 yards, maybe 400 yards. And for me, what was most important was having one sight-in that can kind of do all of those different distances. If you were a sniper, you might want to sight in to the max effective range of these, the 550 yards out to maybe 800 yards, depending on the variables of your rifle. So knowing what your purpose is going to help dictate what you need to sight in at. What we want to find is the sight-in that's going to do the most work with the least amount of adjustments. So for me, that's a 50-yard or a 36-yard sight-in. Now there are three considerations you want to take into account when you're sighting in your rifle. So the ballistic charts that we're going to show you and the ballistic charts that you'll see, they vary depending on three considerations. One is the barrel length. So I'm running my Arley Arms AR right now, and I have a 16-inch barrel. Now, if you're running a 14-inch barrel or maybe a 10-inch barrel, it's going to change, right? It's going to change your ballistics. The second consideration is the feet per second. So what is the actual muzzle velocity, the feet per second of the round coming out of your muzzle? What we'll be showing you is just a standard 3,000 feet per second. A lot of the ammunition you buy will just say the feet per second on the cartridge, so you can use that as a good baseline. This isn't rocket science. You don't have to go like too deep into it because it's not super exact. We're not firing out to a mile, but it will give you a good ballpark for you at home to just do a quick sight-in and you know where that round's supposed to go. And then lastly, the consideration you want to factor in is the type of ammo you use. If you're using just like trash ammo that you bought, from some random guy, it's reloads versus using like a really high precision ammunition, a higher weight grain, a lower weight grain, more powder, less powder. Those things will affect the trajectory. So you do need to factor that. This part may get a bit confusing, but try to like bear with me for a minute and feel free to ask questions in the comments if it's totally unclear. If you think about a sight-in like a 25, a 36, a 50, a 100, imagine like a bow and arrow. If I was going to sight in at a short distance, I'm essentially aiming my barrel up real high. And my trajectory is going to go high and down. I'm going to have this big arc or variance. So the variance is basically going to be that arc from the line that we see, which is our scope, or the line that we see direct to target. That line that we see direct to target through our scope or through our red dot is straight and it never changes. And the bullet itself through that barrel is going to go straight, but it drops because of gravity. And the two will never meet. The two will never meet. So what we do is we actually aim the two to meet and cross, and where they first cross is our sight-in. That's our first sight-in. So we aim that barrel up to come up, hit the sight-in, but then it continues going up in that arc fashion. And then there'll be a second crossover at a later distance. And between the first sight-in and the second sight-in, that arc to what we see, that is the variance. So let's dive into each one just a little bit and help you decide which one is best for you. All right, so for the 25-yard sight-in, everything we're using is based off of 3,000 feet per second on a 16-inch barrel. Whatever your barrel is, whatever your feet per second is, just consider this like a baseline and adjust from there. We sight in chest at 25 yards. At 25 yards, we're gonna hit point of aim, point of impact. Once the bullet gets to 25 yards, the bullet is continuing to go up, 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 up. Remember, it's not rising, it's the apparent rise because we aimed up, all right? So the bullet continues going up, 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 up. The bullet continues going up, 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 up. At 100 yards, you're looking at about 6 inches above the point of aim, point of impact. That's not that bad at 100 yards. So you have a 6-inch variance at 100 yards. The max, though, is once you get out to 200 yards. When you get out to 200 yards, you have almost a 10-inch rise before it starts falling again. So if you were holding point of aim, point of impact on the chest at 25 yards, shooting somebody at 200 yards, now you have a 10-inch variance. That could be okay for you. You just have to understand that you may have to hold lower to hit your target. So if you have to shoot a small 8-inch round plate, you would have to hold 2 inches below just to hit that plate at 200 yards. Hopefully that makes sense to you. The diagrams we have are pretty clear, but let us know in the comment section if that's unclear to you. And then you see this arc, and it actually maxes out, and you see at 450 yards, you're still hitting, about 16 inches low, but 16 inches isn't that bad at 450 yards. I mean, the max effective range of most AR platforms is about 550 yards. The 25-yard line is a very common distance for military, police. Definitely in the military. I know when I first went through training, we were sighting in from 25 yards because it's kind of the workhorse sight-in. It covers the max range with the most versatility and a little bit of variance, but nothing that's like crazy to overcome. Now the 36-yard. The 36-yard sight-in is very popular. There's a lot of people who use this. I would say between the 36-yard and the 50-yard sight-in are probably the most common at this point. You're seeing a lot of like really good shooters, a lot of police departments, a lot of military special units are now sighting in at 36 and 50. And really it's because it has the lowest variance. You're not getting the same max ranges on a normal hold as you would with the 25, but if you think that the max effective range is 550 yards, and you also think, well, what is the most common engagement that soldiers are seeing or police are seeing, it's well within that, well within that. So you want to go with the sight-in that's best for you. Well, if I can have one hold that holds pretty much here throughout, 300, 350 yards, that's kind of my go-to. So I actually sight in at a 50, but I have some rifles sighted in at 36. I consider them almost interchangeable because once again, we're talking about a small amount of distance as opposed to great variance. So a 36-yard sight-in, if I sight in and my bullet crosses my crosshair at 36 yards point of aim right here, at 36 yards, it's point of aim, point of impact. At 100 yards, it's actually only 3 inches of variance higher. 3 inches, that's damn near the same, right, to have 3 inches. And where it maxes out at 150 yards is only 4 inches. So there's almost no rise. It's so insignificant. Most shooters aren't even good enough to notice that 4 inches, especially when standing. It's pretty much point of aim, point of impact. It's very little difference. Now, where you see kind of the downside to it is that as you get out to greater distances. So as you watch the bullet path at 200 yards, it's still 3.5 inches north, which is almost nothing. It's very good. At 250 yards, it's at 2 inches. And then you get past the 300-yard mark, and now we're 3 inches low, which is not very much at all. And then at 350 yards, you're at 9 inches. It drops off sooner, but the steepness of the drop-off is not nearly as bad as necessarily the 25 yards. So the 25 gives the bigger arc. The 36 give it a lower arc, but it's more gradual, so you don't have to have these big hold changes within the the 300-yard range. Now the 50-yard sight-in, it's a sight-in that I hold for most of my rifles. Like I said, some I do 36, but most of them I do 50. 50 because it actually, out to 200 yards, it has the lowest variance of all. We're looking at 1 to 2 inches. So at 50, point of aim, point of impact. Then you go to 100, you're only an inch above, and then 150, you're like 1.5, 2 inches max above your sight-in. So that is very, very minimal. And then you go beyond at 200, you're still an inch north. And then 250, so it drops off a bit sooner, you're at 3 inches to the south, 3 inches low. You go all the way out to 350 yards and you're 14 inches low. 14 inches is pretty significant, but if you think a human-sized target you're shooting at, you have 350 yards, 14 inches is a foot. It's still a hit. It's still a significant hit to the body. It does drop off a lot sooner. So if you were expecting engagements out a bit further, you know, you may want to go with a 36, because a 36 is going to be less variance at a further distance, or even go with a 25. But for me and what I do, the 36 to 50 is definitely the most versatile, with low variances in between. Now, the 100-yard zero is something we have on here kind of just to show you if you have a rifle and you want to sight it in to be more like a designated marksman, like a sniper type rifle. So I put my scope on that rifle and I want to zero in at 100. Well, this is going to show you what the ballistics will do if you don't do any clicks. So if you put on like an LPVO, or if you put on a red dot or iron sights, you sighted to 100. To 100, you would have just a clean, clear shot. It's nothing. It's straight path to 100. And then out to 150, it's no change. It's like a half an inch of change to get out to that 150 mark. But then you're going to see this steep drop off because you are just shooting a straight line, and then gravity is taking over and it drops pretty quickly. But remember, the purpose of the 100-yard sight-in, or the purpose of that optic sight-in, is because you are planning on using your click adjustments to go up and down based on the distances. So you wouldn't necessarily want to do this for a battle rifle or a red dot sight-in, but this is something you could use if you wanted to do an optic. All right, so when we want to sight in, we always want to sight in from the most stable body position. Now, for some of you that may mean in a chair, seated on a bench. I like to sight in prone, the most stable, flat platform I can have, rested on a sandbag. I've done sight-ins, you know, kind of ad hoc, sitting prone with my elbows. I can do it pretty well. But for you at home, it's got to be just whatever the most stable platform is for you. If you want to use a bipod, great. I think sandbags are actually even better than bipods. But you want to make sure that your group is tight. So if you're sighting in at 25, 36, 50, you have a group that's no bigger than a quarter. If it is bigger than a quarter, the group, I mean, you're really playing with a lot of different variables and you're not certain of where the sight is versus where your shooting is. So if you are kind of a sloppy shooter in general, your sight-in is going to be pretty sloppy. So let me show you a few different ways to get as stable and as flat as possible to give you the best chance for a good sight-in. So I want to get into my body position first, which is laying down as flat as possible with my feet flat on both sides, laying flat in position. Then I want to bring my rifle up to my shoulder and my face. So something a lot of people miss is their face changes positions when they lay down versus when they stand up. The face should be in the same position. So what I want to do is I want to match where my cheek weld is, and I want to match where my nose is in relation to the charging handle. So if I shoot stand up and my nose is 4 fingers away from the charging handle, well, I want to match that. I want to be back here, but I'm here, nose touching the charging handle when I shoot, so it's going to be the same when I lay prone. The buttstock is going to be high in my shoulder. A lot of people shoot it tucked in and you see their heads come down. It makes for a really uncomfortable and pretty crappy sight-in. So I bring it up to my shoulder first, up to my shoulder and my cheek first, and then I lay it down. Really important, you don't have the magazine resting on the ground. A lot of people will shoot where the magazine is kind of like a monopod. We don't want to do that. We want to have it free floating, and we want to have our weight on the handguard of the rifle. So I get into my position. I have my left hand underneath the buttstock right here and my shoulder, and I have it under there so that I can make micro adjustments as needed. I lay down, I get my face position, and then I put the dot right where I want it. Now once I put the dot exactly where I want it, I take a deep breath and I exhale, and then I close my eyes, and then I take a deep breath and then I exhale and I open my eyes. If the dot is still on where I took a deep breath and exhaled with my eyes closed, I open. If it's still on it, then that means my natural point of aim is centered. If I take a deep breath and it moves, it's because my natural point of aim is not there. So I want to make sure my natural point of aim falls on that spot every single time. Then I'm ready to fire. And when it comes time to firing, I go on fire, finger on, I take my breath, and as I exhale, I have a 3 to 4 second window when my air is completely out of my chest and my chest is flattest on the ground. I have a 3 to 4 second window where I can squeeze off around, bang, hold the trigger back, don't pop it, don't slap it, just pull, boom, it goes off, and then I release slowly. I repeat that 3 to 4 times. I get a nice tight group, and then I'll walk down and I'll see where that group goes. All right, line is hot. Build my body position. Cheek up. Find my natural point of aim. I'm gonna use the magnifier because, well, that's why I bought it. Safe. Anytime you go down range, you want to make sure you clear and safe, get a buddy check just in case. Now we're going to walk down, take a look at the group. All right, so the first shot I took, I felt like it didn't feel right. I felt like I rushed it. That's why I shot 4 shots, and you could see it kind of went off to the side. So if you ever feel like, hey, that something didn't feel right about it, you can always take more, but you need to know the difference between you shooting off and the gun not being sighted in. So the 3 rounds that I put in, right in here, now I know I'm shooting low. I'm not shooting left. Left was the one I threw off and I could see it. I'm shooting low, so I'm not going to adjust to the right. I'm just going to adjust up. So for me, I'm at 1 inch right now. We're sighting in at a 25 yard just for intents and purposes of showing the demo. But whatever you're sighting in at, just make sure the distance you need to go, whatever optic you have, it's going to be the amount of clicks from the user manual. You can find it on Google or YouTube. There's so many open source resources of how many clicks you're going to go. But for me, I'm going to go up 1 inch and readjust. Even though I just made my adjustments and I feel pretty good about it, I always want to do one more confirmation to make sure I'm hitting exactly where I want. And that way I know where I'm going to be shooting from now on, from here to 550 yards. So I can see just from the magnifier that I'm on, but I also want to see what my group's looking like, how I'm shooting. I'm always trying to be cognizant of how stable I can keep my body while I'm shooting, and is it getting better or worse over time. Taking a look, shots were a pretty good group. And this is completely acceptable and ready to go. The more capable your optic, the more magnified it is, the better you can see. Let's say you have a really magnified sniper scope or something like an 8x magnifier. you're gonna really see crisp details. With that 3x magnifier that I have, it's kind of hard for me to see with my eyes the differences between this and this at that distance, but I'm definitely seeing hits in that solid area. So hold yourself to a tighter standard based on what you can see versus what you can't see. That's why I always recommend on my rifle having some kind of magnifying device, because if I'm using just a red dot, it's really challenging to see my hits at a greater distance. Okay, good. Thanks, Dash. All right, so now you've sighted in your rifle and you have that point of aim, point of impact at the first yard marker. So let's say it's 25 yards. If my sight in is 25 yards, then I know that I hold my dot or my crosshair at 25 yards, it's gonna hit true. Anything closer than that, let's say 5 yards away, I want to hold high. How high do I hold? Well, max my hold will be wherever the dot is in relation to my chamber. So I know that if I'm shooting, let's say at 3 yards or 5 yards, I can hold 4 fingers above my intended target, and I'm gonna hit the target exactly. It's pretty important if you're shooting in close proximity or you're shooting, you know, like walking through your house, you need to know where you're gonna be holding. Now, after 25 yards, it's kind of counterintuitive. After 25 yards, let's say 100, I need to actually hold low. So I put my crosshairs or my dot low to my intended target. And hopefully you guys can look from the ballistic chart that we have on this or from your own research that you're doing with your rifle. You'll know exactly how low to hold at whatever distance you're shooting. And then lastly, you have to remember the third distance. So there's before the crosshair, there's after the crosshair, and then there's after the second crossover where it drops significantly. So we train people, we hold high for close, we hold slightly low for that middle distance, that 100 yards to maybe 250 yards. And then after that 250, 300 yards is when we start holding high again. It's a bit confusing, but hopefully you do your own research and you're gonna figure out how to do this and you'll be an expert marksman. All right, so there you have it. There are a lot of nuanced details to sighting in your rifle. Hopefully you took something away from this video. Definitely recommend you do a couple sight-ins on your own from multiple distances. Biggest things to worry about are your groups tight enough to even have a proper sight-in? A lot of people have other shooters sight-in for them because they're just not good enough. So getting your sight-in to a nice tight group within a quarter is gonna set you up for success no matter what distance you sight in from. And then second, finding out what is the purpose of your sight-in. So am I needing to sight in for some long engagements or something very close? Will help you decide if you want to sight in 25, 36, 50, or even something like 100. Remember, we were using a 16-inch barrel, 3,000 feet per second. Measure your feet per second, your muzzle velocity, what barrel length are you using, and then what kind of ammunition are you using. That's gonna all play a factor in your exact ballistic chart. And then lastly, factor in what are the optics that you're using. Is it iron sights, and you have to line up 2 sights, making sure that your cheek weld and your nose to charging handle are exact. Same if you're using an LPVO. I don't want to have parallax, so I want to make sure that I'm the proper distance to and from my optic. Or using a red dot or like a holographic sight, right? Those will all play a factor in your head position. They'll play a factor in how you want to sight in, how many clicks you want to go up and down. Or are you going for a scoped rifle and you want to just do a 100-yard sight in, get your dope, and then change your calc? Figure out which rifle you're using and what the purpose is, and you'll be good to go. If you like what you saw, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. We have a lot more videos coming out on topics like this and more. USCCA and USCCA.com. We would love to hear from you what you guys are using. What are the optics that you're using? We'd love to hear. Also, what sight-in do you do it from? Are you 25 yards? Are we 36 and 50s? We'd love to hear from you what those distances are and try to get a consensus of what people are doing out there. And lastly, make sure you guys continue training on sight-ins, training on rifle, training on pistol. Just keep training because that's how we move forward and that's how we progress.